Got it. Good evening. It's June 7th, and this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Wareham School Committee. The meeting is being broadcast by WCTV, and our recording secretary, Mrs. Ruiz, is making an audio recording. Our first agenda item is public comment. Would anyone like to come down and address the school committee? Okay. Next, we'll have the good news. Would anyone on the school committee like to share the good news?
Well, seniors are graduating, that's good news.
Oh, push your button.
Seniors are graduating, that's good news.
Yes, and tomorrow morning we're having a breakfast with them, for them, and afterwards they're going to have a procession through the elementary schools, and all those teachers who had them before can see them again, and should be very nice.
The alternative school graduated last Wednesday, so congratulations to all of the seniors, and we wish them the very best.
Yes?
I'd just like to add my thoughts about the alternative school graduation. I had the privilege of spending a few minutes with those graduates the day before at the rehearsal. They are a thoughtful, articulate group of people who have chosen an alternative route, but I see no reason why they can't be equally successful, and I applaud them for their perseverance in moving in that direction. But I also wanted to mention that Mr. Palladino put on another nice show with the underclassmen awards night, which I attended. And Mr. Palladino, they look better every year.
Okay. Next, the minutes of the meeting of May 24th. And does anyone have any corrections? Everyone read it?
Move approval.
Second?
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 500. Angela, yes. Next, we have a presentation from Angela Dunham for her trip to Japan.
Thank you for having me tonight. This is going to be a wonderful opportunity for me to thank the many, many people that took part in my odyssey, my journey. It's a four-part story. It starts out with a phone call that I received from Mr. Hayato Sakurai's associate, Dr. Jonathan Oley, asking if Mr. Sakurai could visit the Captain Kendrick Museum. He was starting to prepare for the 225th commemoration of Captain John Kendrick sailing into Japanese waters, and the 225th year sailing into Kushimoto Harbor. And as we know, when we read our history books, we hear about Commodore Perry, but not about Captain Kendrick, and Captain Kendrick was there 62 years before Commodore Perry. However, Commodore Perry was there under government orders rather than Captain Kendrick's mission for four Boston businessmen. I met with Hayato Sakurai, and Mr. Hayato Sakurai took the tour of the Kendrick Museum, and I invited Scott Ridley, who has written the biography about Captain Kendrick, to meet with Hayato Sakurai. The meeting went very well. From there, communications continued, and Hayato Sakurai asked if we could have a Skype conference with officials from Kushimoto Town Hall in the spring, in that following spring. After that, I received a request from Kushimoto Town Hall asking if I would like to travel to Japan as their guest, along with Scott Ridley and other guests, which I took some time to decide to go. It was not an easy decision for me to travel to that part of the world. I'd never been there before. However, I did decide to go, realizing that it was an opportunity that probably wasn't going to come my way again. I started to discuss this trip with the Board of Selectmen, so I would like to thank the Board of Selectmen for not only supporting me through that journey, but also for providing on their own commemorative challenge coins to take with me to Japan. I then asked for permission to approach different town officials because I wanted to include as many people from the town as I possibly could, including the school system. And so from that point, and they did give me permission. So I took letters of friendship from Superintendent Shaver Hood, and also from the police chief, and from the fire chief of Onset, and fire chief from Wareham, and other town department heads, looking for department head representation that I thought would have an equal counterpart there in Kushimoto. I also contacted Dr. Shaver Hood and asked for permission if I could contact the Global Ed team regarding the school system. I thought it might be a nice idea to incorporate the school children from Wareham in a pen pal type of sister school relationship there. So I then was introduced to Maureen Manning. The mission that Kushimoto Town Hall asked of me was that I set up a Skype conference between Wareham High School students and Kushimoto High School students. And because of the WCTV and Steve Ruiz, I am very grateful to them for setting that up. Matthew Stanton, who was in charge of those students, brought them together at WCTV. We had a dry run, which worked out perfectly. The day of the event, I was there the first week of November. The day of the event, we had a few tense moments where the technology wasn't exactly cooperative. We had a stage where there were many government and officials and professors from Tokyo and Osaka present. We had a cultural hall full of 500 students, all dressed in their school uniforms, blue blazers, white shirts or blouses, and black pants, or the young ladies in blue plaid skirts, beautifully dressed. The students there from the high school were painfully shy. I was faced with a challenge I wasn't quite expecting. I was very, very happy to see all of them. They were happy to see me. From the moment I arrived in Japan, I was treated like royalty, something I certainly wasn't expecting. They set up beautiful accommodations for us. We were met in Osaka by a driver and 2 translators from Kushimoto Town Hall, and we drove the 3.5 hours south to Kushimoto town. The next day was the day of the event, and the children of Wareham, we had Elizabeth Ruiz and Elena Nicoletti taking part in that. I was very proud of them and very pleased with the way the Skype turned out. They had a short exchange, and then from that point on, then the presentations were by Scott Ridley, who wrote the biography, as I said, and Dr. Matthew Perry, who is the 4th generation descendant of Commodore Perry. We then proceeded to a reception at a beautiful hotel and a dinner with military officials, where I presented resolutions from Susan Gifford, Representative Susan Gifford, and Mark Pacheco, Senator Mark Pacheco, also from Congressman William Keating, and a letter from Mayor Marty Walsh. The letters from the town officials, as well as the challenge coins, were presented at that formal dinner. We left the formal dinner and went to the Japan-America Friendship Museum. Hayato Sakurai is the curator there. He has a connection back here at the New Bedford Whaling Museum. He is an associate curator. He was at one point in time the curator there. In any case, the presentation at the Japan-America Friendship Museum was amazing. It was actually literally a red carpet entrance with many press people there. When we entered, there was a beautiful display, all explaining about the recently found documentation in the Duxbury Historical Archives from a sailor who was on one of the two ships in Kushimoto Harbor, which furnished firsthand information and proof of Captain Kendrick's time and the actual day-to-day log of those 10 days that he spent in Kushimoto Harbor. When we left, we went to a Turkish museum, and that was the first day. The second day that I was there was when I was taken along, Dr. Matthew Perry and Scott Ridley accompanied me to a local school where I presented work from not only the Minot Forest school students under the direction of Robin Hennigan, and I am very grateful to Robin Hennigan, and also I want to thank Andrea Barrett from the middle school. The middle school students under Andrea Barrett's direction also had letters, haiku poetry, and drawings to present to the Japanese students. It was a lovely presentation. When we went in, the students were all presented to us. They spoke English. They introduced themselves in English. And they had music, and they also had people there from Osaka University in attendance, as well as the superintendent of schools and, of course, the administrators. We were presented with flowers and gifts, handmade gifts that they had for us. The day couldn't have been more memorable for me. It was really an experience that I'll appreciate all of my life, and I am really, truly grateful for the school system here, Dr. Shaverhood and the teachers, Matthew Stanton, and of course the administrators. I would like to thank Peter Stedman, who's here as well, and I would like to thank Scott Palladino, who's also here, and I would like to thank Joan Siemens from the Minot Forest School. All of these folks all took a major part in making this all possible. Dr. Matthew Perry and Scott Ridley and Hayato Sakurai agreed to come and do a program for me here in the U.S. this past March. So this past March, on March 16th, the New Bedford Whaling Museum graciously let us use their Clark Theater for a presentation, and they discussed, again, the importance of Captain Kendrick's arrival in Japan. We had in attendance that day the Japanese Council from Boston attend. So I was very pleased with the presentation that was there. We had a good attendance. The following day, Hayato Sakurai was here in Wareham, and he visited Minot Forest School and the middle school and presented gifts from the Japanese students to our students here in our school system. One of the things that Hayato Sakurai brought to the middle school was a mobile that was an origami mobile with 1,000 cranes on it. And that mobile represented the souls from Hiroshima. It was a very moving presentation that he made, and Hayato Sakurai talked to the children about the children of Japan and his hopes that we would continue communications with our school systems. I understand that from Andrea Barrett that she has a package for me to send to Japan, again, from the students at the middle school. I'm very, very pleased to know that that will continue. The Global Ed team has welcomed me. They've adopted me. So I'm very, very grateful to all of these people, truly from my heart, for that experience. It was a dream come true. And I'm thanking you as well for giving me this opportunity to talk about the fact that the children of Japan, they were really very happy to see us, and I was very pleased as well to see the children here. They're very respectful when Mr. Sakurai came to visit, and they looked like they were truly invested in continuing the relationship, and I hope that's the case. So thank you.
Well, thank you for spearheading this effort, and it's very heartening to see how the entire community came together for this.
And they did.
Yeah.
They did. Thank you.
Would anyone else? Wait a minute.
Good evening. It's great to see you. Thank you for coming.
Mr. Sweat?
Why do you think what year was Captain Kendrick's 10-day period?
1787 was when he left
1787.
Boston. Yep.
It's been a long relationship since then with a major hiccup. Why do you think they value, and they clearly do based on the way you were treated, why do you think they value this long history despite the major hiccup?
What I saw there is that they are a multicultural society, and they are interested in the outside world and the cultures abroad. I saw that the children were interested in our way of life, as I have when I've traveled elsewhere as well. I recently returned from Brazil, and I saw the same thing. The children of Brazil and the people there also are interested in the culture of other countries. They go to English classes that their parents pay for above and beyond their regular school days, and the children of Japan the same. I saw that they were very interested in other cultures. And I see that happening with the global ed team as well. And so I think that this is an important group of, that you have at the Department of the Global Ed team, a very important component of your school system here. I don't know if you know, but I worked for another school system for 32 years. And they did not have, they had foreign exchange students, but not a team like you have here with the Global Ed team. And I've talked about it, and I've promoted it when I've gone back to substitute there. I think it's a valuable piece of your school system here. But I think the children of Japan acknowledge that it's important that we keep communications open.
And how do the children of Japan feel about the Hiroshima and the 1,000 souls that were commemorated?
That discussion didn't take place. That was a gift from Hayato when he came here. So that discussion didn't take place when I was there in Japan. But I know that when Hayato came here, he wanted to know what the children here in Wareham think of Japan. I didn't get a lot of responses from them, but he did get a lot of questions, more than statements. So Hayato wanted to impress upon them that things happen for a reason. So he talked about, for example, chicken of the sea tuna. He brought that up and talked about the fact that the Japanese on the West Coast were processing that, and then when World War II happened and they were moved to the interior and the Japanese camps, that changed everything for them. And he talked about the fact that we are friends, that we are allies, and that we need to reach out to each other in friendship. And that was his mission.
Thank you again for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to the approval of the student handbooks for 2017-2018. Are we going to start with, turn it over to you? Yeah.
Okay, I think Mr. Palladino is ready to hit the stage, so.
What makes you think he's ready?
Halfway out of his seat, maybe.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to go over our changes in the handbook. We have made a few changes. Some I'm sure you were expecting, some maybe not. But before I start with the changes, I just want to kind of go over how we got here tonight. We had a chance to vet this through our school council, our students, and then also our teachers. We had a chance to have folks come in and review this for an afternoon, and we also were able to get input remotely from teachers throughout the last few weeks. So between the school council, the student advisory council, the students, the staff, I think we received some pretty good input on this. I do know that one of our summer projects, when things do eventually slow down a little bit, is to kind of reformat this. Unfortunately, because of the way it has to be published, it has been in this publisher document, but before we publish it, we are going to try and get this into a better document that's a little bit easier to read when we present. and also maybe a little easier to read online. So we're looking forward to doing that before we do go out to press, but we're hoping for approval tonight in regards to the changes that we hope to make. So I'll go through the changes and then be glad to answer any questions you may have. Staying current with the amount of supervision we have. We changed the before and after school time to 7:20 to 2:10. We really don't, contractually, teachers aren't required to be there until 7:35, so it creates, when you let people in at 7 o'clock, it creates a tough situation. So 7:20 is the time that the doors open, the time that the buses release the students. Dress code, we're just trying to get current with the times. I think some of these were 80s terms, so stretch lycra, tights, leotard, bike pants, underwear, or leggings worn as other. We removed that in there because it was kind of a duplication on page 7. Page 11, graduation ceremony. We added students must meet the attendance requirement of school to participate. Page 12, we added under the library, I won't read this verbatim, but basically this was because of the Chromebooks and the lending policy that we have. We do have a few extra Chromebooks that we have that we're able to lend out. These were purchased through the Gateway golf tournament. We have actually 2 carts where we are able to lend out. So if a kid forgets, and it does happen, I forgot my phone the other day, so it happens to everyone, they have an opportunity to go down there and take one out, just like they would take out a book. These are just kind of some regulations in regards to doing that. Sometimes it's as simple as just lending them a charger. Page 13, MCAS schedule was just released this week, so we'll be able to add that in there. We're excited about that, and I know you're going to talk about that a little later on. Page 14, we added that in regards to summer school, students with 20 or more unexcused absences are not eligible for summer school. On average, that might be a couple kids each summer, and most of the times they're not interested in going to summer school, but every once in a while you do have a student that's interested in that. This was in the athletic permission slip, and we thought it was important to have this part in the handbook. No student will be allowed to be added to a team roster once the first game has been played. And that was on the permission slip, but we thought it was important also to make sure it's aligned in the handbook. Page 18, athletic team transportation. No one should transport a student in their personal vehicle. This was in the teacher's handbook, but not in the athletic handbook. And a lot of the coaches just go by the student handbook, which has all the athletic information in there, so we thought that was important to add. Page 19 should say is administrated during second lunch. That's what it says in the handbook. This is just protocol for ALS, and again, it's based on us having appropriate coverage for students to make sure they're supervised. And we added students who refuse to do work in ALS will receive a 0. And ALS is our alternative learning session. Page 19, and we've got number 6 and number 2. Unfortunately, there won't be any late buses, as you all know. That was discussed at a previous meeting, so we wanted to make sure that was reflected in the handbook. And then page 21, just more about making sure we're kind of up to speed with the Chromebook and just making sure it's being used appropriately. Page 22, this is something that folks felt strongly about. If someone is caught with anything illegal, they are not allowed to park on school grounds. Obviously, we don't want those folks parking a car if there's something illegal in their car and is found. Page 25, a few meetings ago, you heard about those 3 clubs. We're very excited to have those added to our list of clubs. Page 26, this is withdrawal. Obviously, we want to get all of our books and materials back. And a student, we want them to meet, and we talked about that when we talked about dropouts a few weeks ago, that we want to make sure that it's kind of a policy here where they meet with an administrator. We don't want them just going out and not knowing what's going on, because we do want, as we talked about, we track those kids. Consumable goods, this isn't a huge issue, but if you don't have it in the handbook, you don't have something to lean on. But sometimes kids want to sell things like candy or sneakers. Seems to be an issue. We don't want that going on, obviously, in school, and it's prohibited. It's not a huge issue, but it's, again, just something to have it in the handbook so we can document that and use that as our guideline. Page 33, same thing, buying, selling, trading, merchandise. Added under Group C, sexting, possession of pornography, Not a big issue, but every once in a while it comes up. Electronic device in sight during standardized testing. This is a big issue with the state. Wanted to make sure we had a little more leverage by making sure that was in the handbook. And not that we've had an issue, knock on wood, but active arson, the use of explosives, including fireworks and stink bombs. We just wanted to make sure we added that wording in there. So those are the proposed changes. Certainly entertain any questions you may have or comments.
Any comments, questions?
I assume you consider participation in summer school to be a positive.
It's an alternative pathway, but I do think it's better than not doing it all.
Right.
I hope that no one has to go to summer school, but that's probably not going to happen.
Right, I get that. So my one concern is by precluding someone from participating after, I think it was 20 absences, you've precluded
20 unexcused.
20 unexcused. I realize that's a horrendous record, but I would love for you to have the ability, and maybe you do, and I thought I was reading between the lines, to waive that policy so that someone who, for unfortunate reasons, violated that 20 rule, but you believe could benefit greatly from attendance. Do you have that ability?
Principal always has the right to hear an appeal. Again, as I said when I introduced that, it's probably like 1 or 2 students a year. And, you know, if there was an extreme situation and some of those days weren't excused, I mean, probably if they had a really good story or a good situation, we'd excuse those and they'd be underneath that 20 threshold. But certainly we would entertain a conversation if there was a student that we felt could use that in lieu of, you know, the 20 whatever days they've missed.
You know, I mean, it's the old starfish story. I don't care if it's 1 or 2. If it matters to one,
Right.
you know, it's worth
Right.
making the exception with your approval.
Sure. And most of those students, if they've missed that many days, would be in a position where they'd probably be staying back because they'd have multiple failures at that point.
And then just a broad question. Of all the policies, rules, et cetera, that are in this handbook, which one do you find the most difficult to enforce?
The food and drink in the morning in the hallways. I know that's kind of shallow, but that's the
No.
that's the toughest one.
No.
Because I think must be a Dunkin' Donuts right outside the school.
Okay, so it tells me a great deal the fact that you didn't have to think about that.
No.
I mean, that's just right there.
I guess it's a good problem to have, if that's our biggest issue in regards to the handbook.
So were you, given the difficulty in enforcing it, were you inclined to perhaps change it so that you could actually have something in there that was enforceable?
Well, I think we do have language that's enforceable. It's just one of those situations where the magnitude sometimes is so great. You know, we address it every time we see it, and, you know, we have a cafeteria, and we push the students into that area, but it's just, you know, when you have, I don't know, probably 60 kids that go to Dunkin' Donuts before school, you know, it's just something that we have to battle, we have to deal with, and it's constant. But we are following them into the cafeteria, which is important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to approve it. Do I have a motion to approve the high school handbook for 2017, 2018 school year?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we have Dr. Stedman.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for letting me speak to you this evening. So the major changes, we did a lot of wordsmithing, as you saw from what I gave you. I'm not going to take the committee's time this evening to talk about where we added a single word here or there. I'm talking about the major changes that we are going to institute this year. As very similar to what the high school did, we worked very closely with our school council. School council is made up of myself, teachers, and members of the community. So this was a process that we started back in October. looking at the handbook and trying to make changes and trying to align it with our vision. So one of the major changes is primarily on page 11 when it talks about the Student Support Council. And this is a district-wide regular education initiative in every school. The way we run it at the middle school is through the Faculty Leadership Council, or also known as the FLC. And the FLC is made up of principal, assistant principal, dean, department chairs, nurse, school psychologist, and school social worker. Any teacher can fill out SSC paperwork, and this is paperwork if they're concerned about the academic or social performance of a student in their classroom. And this will be analyzed by the FLC at the middle school, and then an action plan will be put into place to best support the student and the teacher. Grade level assistant principals and or the dean will be responsible for communicating the action plan back to the teacher. So that was a pretty big change on page 11. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask you a question, because we were right on that, and one little part was confusing to me.
Yes.
So it was, you noted that the SSC in the middle school is FLC. Then the next sentence, you referred to the SSC again, and then the next sentence went back to the FLC. I thought it was going to continue as FLC after that, but did you do that on purpose?
Yeah,
Is that a reason?
I
Is there a
did only
reason?
because it's primarily like the idea of the Student Support Council process.
Okay.
The process is designed to allow teachers.
Okay.
So maybe with your permission, I might just take out SSC and put rather process.
Yeah.
It's designed. And then it should flow.
It's great. It just
No,
was
no, that's a good point. Thank you.
Confused me for a moment. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I have a question just to clarify. So this is the same as the SSC, and the teachers don't meet with the team to discuss it? They just hand in paperwork and then they get paperwork back?
And with an action plan created.
Yeah,
Right, to then sort of target that intervention, what would happen.
okay. I just feel that that's a missing component in being able to talk about it instead of the team looking at paperwork, because there's always a missing piece,
Sure.
in my opinion.
Right, and part of that is then, the action plan might then necessitate having more individuals, including
Right.
members of that, let's say, grade 5 team, to then meet and talk. This is just the first step in the process.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have a question too.
Yeah.
It says that parents may be invited to join SSC meetings to participate in the process. So maybe, what does that mean?
Right, so if the action plan was developed so that parents should be included in terms of developing a specific action for their son or daughter, they could be invited as well.
And if they weren't, so they wouldn't know what was going on? How would it be communicated to parents?
Oh, I see, in terms of may. Yeah, so therefore, if an action plan is developed, then parents are notified. But in terms of that initial meeting,
Okay,
that's what I'm speaking of, that initial meeting, parents wouldn't necessarily be invited right away. But then if the action plan is created, then that would be informed to the parent.
thank you.
On page 19, we're also going to take out the pieces of the late buses, as was determined. Back to page 14, we had discussed this at an earlier session, talking about perfect attendance. We wanted to indicate this year that appeals may be made to the principal due to an absence based on an extenuating circumstance. Page 21, there was discussion this year about allowing students something to protect their individual Chromebooks. So we made one slight alteration where a protective laptop case with a handle may be brought to class in order to protect the student's individual Chromebook. It's not a backpack. It would be a case where the student could protect his or her Chromebook. It is important to recognize that on page 25, the adjustment program that we have at the middle school is called the Therapeutic Learning Center, or the TLC. Page 34, we made some changes to the awards. We removed most improved, That is not an award that is given at our school at this time. The Citizenship Award, really we thought, the school council felt that what you're talking about with citizenship, you're really talking about the student of the month. So we took out citizenship and we recognize students of the month every month. And finally, we added a new award called the Leadership Cafe, and this is awarded to a student by an individual teacher. These students are recognized for exemplifying positive behaviors and leadership characteristics. These students are given the opportunity to meet with other selected leaders in their grade level to explore the key characteristics of leadership. This happens every few weeks. An individual teacher may select a student in his or her classroom, and these students meet with me, and we talk about leadership and what it means at the middle school. That is a new award that was set up this year. Moving on to page 40, looking at the code of conduct, what we added in each section of A, B, C, and D, we added a counseling piece that we always, no matter what the offense may be, that there always should be some way for that student, whatever active indiscretion, should connect with a counselor. And then we also added pieces of parent notification and or involvement all the way through that. So we make sure it's essential that the parent is notified in some capacity of the offense. And as you can see, after each element, that parent notification would take on different forms. For Group A offense, it'd be parent notification. That might be a letter home, of course, or a phone call home, or a meeting. Could take on many forms. Group B, we thought it'd be really beneficial that there's an actual parent meeting with administration. And of course, it goes for Group C as well. Finally, one last piece also we added, based on your recommendation a few weeks ago, we added on page 36 for the Safe Schools GSA Club as an extra club. Those are the major changes that I have.
Does anyone have any questions? I think I do for one. On page 64, because I think we updated this policy, looks a little different now. The student exchange program, we updated it. We removed that must reside in Wareham. And we also added must have a certain visa, F1 visa, the new policy that we accepted. So it just needs to, those two.
It was tabled,
It was.
Yeah.
and Jeff tabled it to October. We never approved it.
Okay. That's why it's not there. Okay.
I didn't
sorry.
table it, the committee tabled it.
Yes.
Well, you recommended to be tabled,
So don't, okay.
No.
so it doesn't change it.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yes. Go ahead.
So I admit to having been moved 4 weeks ago by your request for that Safe Schools Club. I am routinely confronted by both parents and students who talk about the balance between how do I put this? There are clearly, the vast majority of our students want to learn, but there are some students who struggle in that environment. Do you think that this handbook reflects, and do you feel comfortable that there is the correct balance between the overwhelming number of students who want to learn and them not being negatively impacted by this very small percentage who don't?
I do. I think as we talked this time last year, or I guess a little later than June, we took a lot from the high school handbook. As you remembered, earlier iterations of this book did not break it down to A, B, C, or D. I like the fact that that has done so with this, and it allows us to find that balance. There are times when a student, particularly in the middle school years, makes a mistake. he or she, hormones raging. It allows us to have a conversation, bring in the parent, engage in a productive dialogue. But there are some acts of discipline that really need swift consequences. I believe this handbook, primarily as you move on to C and D, those offenses that specified there, allows us to take corrective action as needed.
And in your opinion, the state regulations do not preclude you from being effective in that process?
No, and I really believe the state has my back. That's how I feel, that the state supports me and other principals to make those kinds of decisions that create a safe school.
Because you know the district has been chastised for some data generated by disciplinary process.
I understand.
Has that data improved? And if it has improved, has it improved and yet not sacrificed the overall environment that you're trying to create?
I'm sure there's going to be an opportunity, maybe in the future, to talk about that data specifically. So I guess I would encourage us maybe to have that specific conversation at that time.
Not asking for the data tonight.
But if we are going to talk about that data, I'd like to, really be clear on it. I think the handbook, though, and primarily working with the school council is a really rewarding experience for me. I think they get it, and they were really instrumental in putting in the language where we're reaching out to parents and trying to form a school-parent partnership. Not that that hasn't existed in the past, but really make it an emphasis for us next year to really try to work collaboratively with families to make sure that we're encouraging our kids to do the right thing.
I will say finally that I think the school committee should pass a policy that there's a finite number of acronyms that are allowed in any school district, and that when we reach a certain number, that we have to eliminate some old ones, just FYI.
I understand. And I, again, apologize for the page 11. I was referring to the SSC process, but we at the middle school do it through the FLC.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
But anyone else?
I would just like to say I applaud your effort for bridging that gap between school and parents and families, because I think that's a piece that's really missing. And so I applaud that effort.
Like anything, a work in progress, but that's where we're heading.
Good.
Do I have a motion to approve the middle school student handbook for 2017-2018?
As amended, yes.
Second?
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0.
Thank you very much.
And do you want to speak about the, no, oh, elementary, that's right. We went out of order, so.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. I'd first like to thank the folks in the audience that have attended tonight, that are supporting our presentation here. We have members of our school council as well as administrative staff. So thank you very much. So we are here to present the elementary school handbook. We have a few changes, but just so you know up front, because we wanted to make sure we track the changes, the formatting issues will be fixed once approved, and the table of contents would be fixed at the end, because they have to go through everything now and then go back and change it. That's a long process. And although Dr. Sylvia is not here, he was in our ear when we went through this and we were looking at grammar, so he'll be pleased to know.
I was thinking about him too with the handbooks.
So he'll be pleased to know we made grammatical changes and we looked at everything. So some of the major changes or minor changes that we looked at on page 3, when we talked about ways teachers communicate, we didn't want to specify exactly what that was going to be, because they do a lot of two-way communication, newsletters, weekly things, class dojo. So we didn't want to limit it. So we just said they would communicate with two-way communication. On page 5, we just updated the policies. So we went through, it helped to be on the policy review committee, so I knew which policies had been updated, but we also checked, and for consistency, we made sure we put Wareham School Committee policy if it was reviewed or amended. So that was throughout our handbook, so I won't mention any others of those. one other example on page 7 was residency regulations. That was a definite policy change, so we added that to make sure that was consistent. When you look at page 21, we did change some items for discipline, and Mrs. Noonan will speak to that.
This is perhaps the area where the greatest change occurred in the elementary handbook. And our goal with talking with our school council was to add into this a piece that really proactively described the expectations and guidelines for behavior. What we had prior was mostly from the disciplinary point of view and what we would do if an infraction occurred. But we wanted to set the stage for what should be the expectations. We also wanted to do it in a user-friendly way, given that our population is a K-4 population. We wanted to put it in terms and words right here that a parent could take out and read to their child so that they would have a solid understanding of the expectations but in the school, and the cafeteria, in recess, and then in the classrooms and other settings in our schools. We also made mention of our involvement in the PBIS system, and while that looks different at our schools based on the implementation, it is a way that we positively address positive behaviors in our school, and we celebrate children for the right things that they are doing. So that's mentioned. Then we preserve the pieces around the what-ifs in the event that there is action that needed to be taken, such as the out-of-school and in-school suspensions.
On page 30, we added number 13. A parent guardian of all preschool and kindergarten children must be at the bus stop to receive their child. This has been a procedure that has been in place for years, and we found that it was missing here, so we wanted to make sure we put that in there. In the event there is no parent or guardian at the stop, the child would be returned to school. On page 47, we just changed a little bit of the wording under personal items. There were things that we listed that shouldn't be brought to school: toys, trading cards, collectibles. They can become a distraction during instruction time. But every once in a while, there is a reason why they may need to be there for a project. So that's why we wanted to make sure we put unless prior authorization exists. So if the teacher needs something for a special project, she or he has that ability. And the rest, the contact list will update once we have it, and as I said, the table of contents. So those were our major and minor edits that we had.
Would anyone, Mary?
This question is actually for all the principals, and I just thought of it after actually the nice presentation about our Japan partnership. So do you automatically offer the handbook in a different language if you know the parents speak a different language?
We would have to do that for ELL purposes if the parent needed it.
Okay.
So back to personal items. When I read this, I thought to myself, kids bring backpacks to school all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you, either of you, or do the teachers inspect those backpacks?
No.
So the truth is, there could be anything in there.
There could be, and if they're in the backpack and they stay in the backpack and they don't come out of the backpack, then I don't have a problem with that. It's when they come out of the backpack and they're being played with during class time.
I understand completely, but technically, this really needs to be reworded because you're basically saying if it's in the backpack, it's not in the school.
Well, the other issue is daycare and after-school care. When the students take a bus and they go to the Boys and Girls Club or they go to Little People's College, they are allowed to have them there.
I understand.
So it is a difficult.
So I'm not disagreeing with the policy. I'm disagreeing with the wording because a backpack is not inspected. It could contain anything. So I really think you need to somehow say if it remains in the backpack, it's not considered to be a violation of this policy. Am I making sense?
I understand what you're saying.
Because I know you don't want to preclude them from bringing things for a different location that is appropriate. It's just not appropriate in your school. Donna's not so sure.
Just that my concern would be that the items in the backpack could become a problem on the bus, so we need to make sure that that we're consistent with how it's handled on the bus.
Good point. Right, you don't want them taking things out of the backpack on the bus and that interfering with the bus driver. Right, exactly. Any thoughts on how we could reflect this understanding in that short little paragraph?
We'll talk about that, and we have a school council meeting on Monday. So we'll get their input to make sure they're on board, but we'll make that change. That'll be fine.
I'll leave it to the superintendent to decide whether it should preclude a vote this evening.
I would ask that we take a vote this evening with the change adjusted, just because of what's on for our next school committee meeting, and that will be our last meeting before August, and we need to have these printed.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have a question? I had one comment. I really applaud the guidelines for behavior that you added to page 22. And I just had a question. You didn't have guidelines for bus behavior printed, although you referred to it being reviewed at the beginning of the year. Is that included somewhere?
It's under the
document?
transportation section.
Okay.
Yes.
And it mentions bus briefly in this line at the bottom.
Okay. No, I saw it mentioned briefly.
Right.
That's
And
why I asked.
then it's elaborated upon in the transportation section.
Okay. You know, I made a note after that, elaborated on page 29. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Both of them. All those in favor?
What did you
Aye.
move?
Aye.
Could you tell me what you
Moved
moved
approval of the elementary school handbook
with the adjustment?
Yes, did,
Because they talked about making an adjustment.
as adjusted, as amended.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay. Did we vote? We did vote? We all said that?
Yes.
500.
Next would be the district handbook. The district handbook changes really reflect policy changes or just some wordsmithing. For example, school attendance, we deleted No Child Left Behind and replaced it with the new Every Student Succeeds Act, updated the FERPA on page 7, updated the message on page 18 regarding bullying, and counseling resources have been updated. And so what we did is just move through the handbook and made any changes. So if you have any specific questions, I would be very happy to answer them. If not, I would ask for your approval.
Move approval as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 500.
Thank you. All right, now we're ready for the school calendar, and this will be our last time that we bring the school calendar before you for this
Promise is
school.
promise.
Yeah, I know. So I will cross my fingers. The reason why we're bringing this for you are twofold. Number one, we received the dates for MCAS, so they are listed on the school calendar, and as we ratified the Unit A contract last time, the Unit A added one more in-service day, which meant we had to place it at some point during the school year, which would make an adjustment to the last day of school. And so a new calendar that says amended that you have before you makes those adjustments. There's an early release day on October 31st. The in-service all-day training will be Friday, January 12th, which will have school closing on June 25th, and that's with the 5 school days, or 5 snow days. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer that. If not, I would ask for you to approve our school calendar.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve the amended school calendar?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500.
Thank you.
And now, Mr. Palladino?
So I'm here representing the high school as a whole. Wareham High School would like to propose to the school committee that the Wareham High School Deca Store be named after Dr. Clifford W. Sylvia. As many of you are aware, Dr. Sylvia created the DECA program in 1973. It took a full year for him to create that program, and it's been really a benchmark of Wareham High School for many years. He served as the department head from 1990 to 97. After his retirement, Dr. Sylvia served on the Wareham School Committee from 2003 to 2017. Dr. Sylvia was influential in the Plymouth County Teachers Federal Credit Union opening a branch in the DECA store, and he has been a constant supporter of the DECA program in all of his capacities.
And it's school committee policy that we would need a vote to
Correct.
bestow this honor on Dr. Sylvia.
I'd like to take a motion. Yes?
Technically,
Technically.
it needs the recommendation of the superintendent.
Oh,
And the superintendent is honored and thrilled to make this recommendation.
Just a technicality.
do I have a motion?
I move approval of the DECA
School store.
School store be named after Dr. Sylvia.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Thanks. I know he's watching tonight, and I know he's very excited, so thank you.
Next, we'll have the superintendent's report.
Thank you. We have several bill warrants and payroll which need to be approved. So first, we'll do payroll for the week ending in May 27th in the amount of $153,165.55. Payroll ending on June 3rd in the amount of $871,671.54. I would ask for approval of the two payrolls.
And we do that together?
Yes, please.
Do I have a motion to approve the two payrolls?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I'm a little nervous doing this without Michael in the audience.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 500.
Next would be school bill warrants. The first would be in the amount of $169,889.79. The second would be $412,806.19.
And that's called the school bill?
It's the warrant, yeah,
Yeah.
bill warrants.
Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 500.
Thank you. Tomorrow morning, we will begin with the school committee breakfast held for the seniors. You're all invited to attend. It will be at the high school beginning at 8 o'clock. After the breakfast, our high school seniors in their gowns will practice, and then they will hop on the bus. Well, first they'll walk through the middle school, and then they'll hop on the bus and walk through the halls in their cap and gowns in our elementaries. And we're absolutely thrilled to showcase our seniors for their accomplishments. Graduation, with our fingers crossed, will be Friday night at 6:30. The rain date is Saturday at 6:30, but we know that it will be Friday. The 8th grade promotion ceremony will be June 15th at 5 o'clock at the high school gym, and we certainly invite everyone to attend our celebrations.
The high school.
At the high school, different
What time is that?
location, 5 o'clock. And finally, I would like to thank You know, we have leaders throughout our district, whether they be secretaries, whether they be paraprofessionals or teachers, we have people that have risen to the leadership positions. And I would like to have a special thank you to Nancy Cedarholm for all her years of service as serving as president of the Secretarial Association. Nancy has stepped down, and we certainly welcome the new president, Helene Owens, and look forward to our continuing working relationship with the Secretaries Association. But I would just like to give a special thank you to Nancy for her leadership, her history, and all that she's given to the district during her years as president. So that completes my announcements, and thank you very much.
There are no school committee reports. And at this time, is there any other business not reasonably anticipated?
Just, it's not exactly a school committee report, but I just, as a member of the Minot Forest School Building Committee, I know that the selection committee has been working very hard, and in fact, I sat in on one of the meetings. They're a very effective committee. They achieved a very good consensus. They were meeting with potential project management firms today for hours, so that's all going extremely well, and I applaud Michael and the rest of the committee for the work that they're doing. The second thing is, I don't think this little memo that was handed out to us from International Baccalaureate.
You don't want yet.
No, nobody else got it.
Yeah, I don't have one.
Oh, I thought it was just,
It isn't, yeah.
I'm not allowed to say
No,
anything?
you can, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I hadn't made a copy yet, so that's my only copy.
Oops.
Lose it.
I wrote on it.
That's okay.
Okay. In any event, sorry about that.
That's all right.
The middle school has been approved for International Baccalaureate candidacy. This is this is an achievement in and of itself, but it's on the way to achieving what the high school has achieved. I am thrilled that we're proceeding with this. I'm thrilled that Dr. Stedman is going to be leading this effort, and I applaud the superintendent for moving forward with this.
Yeah, and if we can just pass it down so people can see.
Sorry about that.
And one more?
Yes, I'm sorry. I just wanted to share that the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Moving Wall will be here in Wareham on August 17th through the 21st. There certainly will be fundraising events. It's a wonderful opportunity for Wareham, and I certainly would encourage our students and our community to support this memorable event.
One more.
They need volunteers still, just so, you know, if anyone can help, you know, with the tents, or they'll train you what they need you to do, or help for a whole day or a couple of hours. I know they're still looking for people to sign up and help.
Two quick things. One is, although I am being prevented from attending myself, I encourage everybody interested in our high school seniors to attend the awards night tomorrow night. We're going to be handing out, what did you say, Mr. Palladino, another $250,000 and over $250,000, almost $250,000 in scholarships tomorrow night, and it's a great event. I'm sorry, I'm going to be missing it. And then I did have a question about the middle school IB program. What grades does that cover?
6, 7, and 8, and it's the middle years program, and we will be working now to develop the application further and the units that will be necessary.
So what happens to 9 and 10 in this?
9 and 10 have already been accepted for the middle years program.
Right, but when talking to kids, it sounds like they think that it's 11 and 12 that's really IB diploma. So what is the difference between what happens, because they're all 2-year courses, right?
Mm-hmm. No.
Okay, so I'm totally, so.
What we will do is, Dr. Schwamm will be making a presentation next time, and we'll just merely ask her to include more descriptions about the middle years program in her presentation.
But she was having so much fun telling me I was wrong back there.
I know.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
So we have.